from the jagged peaks of the Peloponnese. A storm of bronze and ambition swept across the Aegean. They called themselves the Mycenaeans, warrior kings who built their thrones atop mountains of stone. Their cities loomed like fortresses, their walls thicker than the trunks of ancient oaks. At Mycenae, the lion gate snarled defiance at the world, its carved beasts frozen in eternal challenge. Below, armies drilled with unrelenting discipline, their shields crashing in rhythmic defiance. But these were not mere raiders. They were heirs to a fading empire, the Minoans, whose ships once ruled the waves. The Mycenaeans took that legacy and sharpened it into a sword. They craved more than gold. They craved dominion. And on the horizon, shimmering like a mirage, stood Troy, a city of legends, wealth, and power. A city straddling the divide between empires. What drove these warlords to cross an ocean for war? Was it ambition? Was it vengeance? Or was it something far greater? To answer that, we must step into their world, a world of blood, betrayal, and the whispers of gods. But first, let us walk the halls of their fortress cities, where ambition was etched into every stone. Imagine a kingdom where every stone told a story of war. Mycenae's cyclopean walls, built by giants, or so the legends claimed, towered over valleys of olive groves and vineyards. Inside the palace, the Wanax, a king cloaked in leopard pelts, ruled with a fist of iron. His scribes etched inventories into clay tablets. Chariots, swords, slaves. Linear B, their cryptic script, recorded it all. A bureaucracy fueled by conquest. This was a society forged in fire. Charioteers, draped in bronze-scale armor, trained for battles they knew would come. Infantrymen, armed with spears tipped with Cypriot copper, drilled in the shadow of those monstrous walls. Even their gods were warriors. Ares, thunderous and bloodthirsty. Athena, cunning and cold. By 1450 BCE, their ships dominated the Aegean. They traded amber from the Baltic, ivory from Syria, and tin from beyond the Pillars of Hercules. But trade was never enough. To the east, where the sun rose over Anatolia, a rival empire watched and waited. And in that east lay Titans, giants who would not kneel. Beyond the wine-dark sea, the world was a chessboard of empires. In Egypt, pharaohs like Ramses the Great erected monuments to their own divinity, their armies a blur of chariots and golden bows. The Hittites, lords of Anatolia, answered with iron, a metal so strong it shattered bronze. Their capital, Hattusa, was a labyrinth of temples and archives, where spies deciphered letters from kings as far as Babylon. And then there was Troy, not just a city, but a gate. Perched on the Dardanelles, it commanded the narrow strait where every ship from the Black Sea paid tribute. Its warehouses brimmed with grain from Ukraine, silver from the Balkans, and lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. To the Hittites, it was Wilusa, a vassal state. To the Mycenaeans, it was the lock to a treasure chest. But Troy was no pawn. Its walls, rebuilt 7 times, defied earthquakes, sieges, and time itself. Its people, a fusion of Luwian traders and Greek colonists, understood their worth. They spoke the language of gold, steel, and survival. When the Hittite emperor wrote to the Ahiyawa, the Mycenaeans, his words dripped with warning, "Do not test the storm god's patience. Wilusa is mine." The Mycenaeans laughed and sharpened their blades. By 1300 BCE, the Aegean stood on the edge of chaos, a tinderbox waiting for a spark. The Tawagalawa letter, a fragile clay tablet from Hattusa, speaks of a renegade Hittite prince fleeing to Mycenaean lands. The Hittite emperor demanded his return. The Mycenaean king refused. It was more than a feud. It was a direct challenge to Hittite supremacy. Then, the unthinkable, Hattusa burned. Flames devoured the archives, toppled the temples, and consumed the palaces. Droughts scorched Anatolia's fields, rebellions boiled over. The Hittite Empire, once an unshakable titan, began to fracture beyond repair. The Mycenaeans smelled blood. They fanned the flames of rebellion, infiltrated Hittite outposts, and tightened their grip on the Anatolian coast. Their pottery filled the markets. Their spies filled the streets. But Troy still stood, a city that refused to kneel, an empire trapped between fading gods and rising warlords. To the Mycenaeans, Troy was not just an obstacle, it was an insult. A defiance that demanded, yet fire alone could not burn Troy. For that, they needed more. A justification, a deception, a betrayal so great history itself would record it in legend. They needed a key, not forged in bronze, but in greed. Let us speak plainly. Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships, she was a spark, not the kindling. The real prize was Troy's geography. Every ship sailing from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean had to pass its shores. Troy taxed them all: grain, tin, slaves. Controlled that chokehold, and you controlled the Bronze Age. By 1200 BCE, the Mycenaeans were drowning. Their palaces burned. Thebes, Pylos, Tiryns. Droughts strangled their fields. The once mighty rulers now waged a war not with swords, but against famine, against chaos, against time itself. The sea peoples, raiders from the unknown, ravaged the coasts. To survive, they needed Troy's wealth, and so they spun a legend. A tale of a stolen queen, of dishonor and vengeance. But beneath the poetry, it was a gambit for survival. The gods demanded war? No. Kings did. And when kings demand war, no legend is safe, no truth untwisted, no blood unspilled. And kings demand armies. The stage was set. In Mycenae, Agamemnon, the king of kings, mustered his vassals, their warships looming like a storm upon the Aegean. In Troy, King Priam tightened his alliances, knowing that his city stood not just against an army, but against fate itself. The Hittites, too weakened to intervene, sent promises of gold, but no soldiers. What followed was not just a war, but an avalanche, a clash so great its echoes would shake the pillars of time itself. The Trojan War did not end the Bronze Age. It was its executioner. The final breath before an age of gods and heroes collapsed into fire, ruin, and silence. In our next episode, we step onto the blood-soaked beaches of Troy. The gods will choose sides, heroes will fall, and a wooden horse will cast a shadow that lasts 3,000 years. Subscribe to Legacy of History and prepare for the next chapter in this